In a disposable society, don't we, today? Everything's thrown away. I was reading a story recently about how a woman had a fridge, freezer, and she'd bought it in the 80s and it was still going strong. But she was advised by, get this, an estate agent trying to sell a house, that if she wanted to sell it, she should chuck it away and get a new one because it's all about modern appliances and how things look. As she pointed out, there's nothing wrong with it. It's going as good as it was way back in the 80s. Why would you get rid of it? This apparently was a bit of a faux pas for the estate agent because she was quickly binned and someone else more acceptable found. And it makes you think, doesn't it, when we look in this world that we live in, exactly, there's a lot of wealth around us and you think, wow, they just live in a different universe, a different planet. But not always, as ever. Let me explain. Hi, good morning, Neil Sean here in the very heart of London. Nice to see you. Now, this story really does warm the heart as such because recently, I think this is a lovely story. In fact, recently the King was attending a church service out at Sandringham for the new year. And he went along to meet all the well-wishers and, the usual stuff. It's not a big event. It's a sort of thing that he's just brought back in, because he was based there, which is very nice. What is nice to know, though, that a lot of people were absolutely amazed at, of course, the King's attire. To me, he's always impeccably dressed, and when you see him, always brilliantly shone shoes, absolutely brilliant. You could see your own face in them, the sort of phrase, just looks great. But then, of course, a lot of people were saying, well, hang on a minute, that cut of that particular coat doesn't necessarily look exactly new. Well, it's not. It turns out that that beautiful tweed long coat, keeping him warm in that wintry chill, was in fact 40 years old. Turns out his shoes were 35 years old. And then this really exploded because a lot of people were saying, how come he's wearing so old clothes? Well, this is nothing new. We talk about sustainability and saving the planet, but actually the British monarchy do this incredibly well. Even our late and beautiful monarch, Queen Elizabeth II, very rarely threw anything away. She liked things to be remade, redesigned, turned into, jackets, all sorts of stuff, and didn't really come, from the era of waste, as you can imagine, given her age and things like that. And King Charles is the same. Now, apparently, as I say, he doesn't like anybody buying new shoes if they can be mended. He likes to have them mended, resoled, whatever it takes. His turn-up trousers are apparently, as I say, are 35 years old. But if people think that turn-ups are out of fashion, as he points out, when you rewear them again, somebody looks and thinks, actually, I quite like the look of those, and you start a trend. On a serious note, he's not alone. The Princess Royal, Princess Anne, regularly wears outfits that we first saw over 40 years ago. Re-hats, re-blouses, dresses, that sort of stuff. She points out that in her particular role, yes, once is not enough. And it's not about the cost of living crisis as such. She often says she simply hates waste. So when you think about people talking about sustainability and making do and, reusing things, as King Charles pointed out, it's a lot harder for women because a gentleman could just change his tie or his jacket or cufflinks or something, and people see it as a refreshed outfit. For a girl, particularly a lady, if you come out in the same ball gown at a big event, everybody picks holes in it. But he's pleased with the fact that the Princess of Wales regularly has taken up his cause. And as we've seen over the last few years, picks outfits that she's worn 10 and 12 years ago. Brilliant that she can still get into them. I'm sure we all can't say the same. But isn't it nice to know, whichever way you look at it, that King Charles really does like to make sure he's saving the planet one bit of clothing at a time. Neil Sean in the very heart of London.